welcome to the Death of a Dream podcast. We're going to go ahead and dive right in. I have my favorite. I get to feature someone else's great thing. If you ever get the opportunity and you're just feeling really jazzed up about your great thing, you can message me. You can go to the webpage and also send me your great thing, and you might be featured right here on the Death of a Dream podcast, because that's what we're about, right? Celebrating one another, helping to build each other up and move forward together in our greatness. So I had a listener send this to me, this Miss Jasmine, and she sent me a great thing from yesterday. Was crying after taking care of a patient. At the time, I thought I was the worst nurse in the world because of it. And I should have my emotions together and be able to deal with things. Reflecting back on it today made me realize I'm a great nurse because I cried and because I cared. Before listening to you, I would have just moved on with that negative feeling and took it into my next shift. Rethinking and reanalyzing it made me see it for what it was, a great thing. And I think that is exactly it. So many times we're like so self-inflicting and so negatively looking at everything that we're putting into this world because, that's how we're raised. That's how we're taught. That's kind of what we see and what we're told growing up. And so many times those things, like Jasmine had said, she cares. Okay? So that fact, that truth, she has probably been kind of situated in her life to look at that as a weakness versus a strength. That ability, I have never shared that ability to kind of get to that place. But I think that I'm coming back to that person. But I'm still in the recovery process of that. I find this great thing so beautiful because it's someone seeing the good in what they add to this world versus only pulling the bad from it. And that's what the great thing is about, right? We have to shift that mindset. You heard her say that. Before this great thing, I would have overanalyzed and thought about what a bad nurse having that reaction made me. And instead, I was able to find a way to see that as the great thing that it really was. And that's why this work is so important. We have to start reframing things for ourselves. We have to start moving in that direction of championing and finding that, right? Because for too long, we've been told the really awesome things about us are actually bad, right? Jasmine, the amazing thing about you is that you can feel that deeply, right? If I'm a patient, I want nurses who feel that deeply, who have the ability to feel that pain with me. Because guess what that makes you? An extremely empathetic, beautiful caregiver. Right? People who don't feel that don't have the ability to put themselves in that patient's shoes and therefore have the ability to care for them the way they need to be cared for. And that's such a beautiful gift. And I think so many times we're called to, or we do, right? We jump on ourselves and we look at those things that we feel like should be negatives, and we look at them as negatives, and we position ourselves to beat ourselves up for those things, and then we end up covering the beauty of our gifts and the beauty of what we bring into this world. And so Jasmine's great thing, I hope, inspires we just stopped recording for some reason. Sorry, we just stopped recording. I have no idea. Oh, that's why. Okay. We're going to stop recording here, and I have to get on another browser. So let me go ahead and do that. This is the beauty of recording a podcast live. Okay. It's so fun. These are the kinds of things that happen. Oh, now I have to get logged in. Oh boy, oh boy. All right, but I think with Jasmine's really the ability to dive in, to go to that deeper level, I hope she inspires you to look at things that you would have villainized prior and pull strength from them. Find the greatness in that, right? And not just like, oh, we're not really feeling that we felt bad in that situation and we cried. Like, tap into how amazing it is that you even have those emotions, because not a lot of people do. And so, yes, like Jasmine, you should find that as a strength. But for long enough, we have villainized women's ability to feel deeper. Sorry if you're a guy listening to this. We just have, right? And I know I do it in my own life. And so I'm guessing a lot of us have. And it's such a beautiful gift that we need to start recognizing it for the greatness that it is. And I think, Jasmine, what an amazing example of that. Okay, we're back on the real podcast recorder. So that's Jasmine's great thing. Go ahead and take time today for yourself to recognize yourself for your great thing, because that's when we start shifting that belief, right? That belief that we are not great. That's how we do it. Jasmine is a perfect example of how you shift something you would have seen as a negative and find the good in it and really kind of sway that mindset into an expansive one, into a mindset where you recognize yourself for the greatness that you offer this world versus hating yourself for it. I'm just saying, been there, done that, okay? We're in this world together. Let's go ahead and recognize ourselves for the greatness that we had, okay? Thank you, Jasmine, for your great thing. If you want to submit your own great thing, you can head over to nussinc.com. That's where you can fill in the form, probably one scroll down, and submit your own great thing. If you want to be featured on this podcast, you can also jump into my chats or DMs, anywhere you can find me. I'd love to chat with you about changes that you've seen in your own life as you've started to adopt greatness grounding into your own practice. Okay, let's dive in. Holy cow. I do love taking a break from my own greatness grounding live on the podcast. I will still do it after this, but I love the chance to feature people who have seen an impact from this movement. It always makes my day. It's twofold, it's threefold, it's 100-fold. I can't even tell you how much of a difference it makes in my life to hear from you, and how important that is to all creatives in this landscape, right? Whether they write, whether they speak, whether they podcast, whatever they do, and however that hits you, if you get the opportunity to tell a person like that the changes you've made in your life because of them and because of the work they put into this world, if you get a chance to do that, please do that. It is fuel for people like me's soul. Okay? Recognize people for that. That's amazing. right? That's what they're set in this world to do, people. Oh my goodness. We are a Hot Mess Express coming to you live today. I'm just saying. Okay, so if you get a chance, just drop into their DMs, wherever, however you have to reach out to these people. It's life-giving. Do not doubt how life-giving you reaching out can be to someone like that. And I don't care if they have 100 million followers. Take that second, right? Let them know. Okay, we're going to actually dive in now. We're diving in. It's a real thing. All right, so I keep dropping my phone because anytime that I feature someone else in the great thing, usually I want to read the exact words that they sent me. So I will pull up that email, or I'll pull up that form that they filled out, or text, however they found me, DM, and I will read directly from there. So I apologize for the phone fumbling, but I also had been thinking about this topic for a little while now, and a lot of times if I don't find full clarity on what I want to say, I'll wait until it comes back. And if it comes back, usually that's how I know that this is meant to be something for us and for this group. And so that's what we did today. Today I found a quote on the good old Gramming it up, people. And it said, eliminate everything that isn't you. Take a step back. Watch how everything aligns just for you. And so I had been contemplating how I talk about that, because I have gone on that process. So this whole last year, so season 1 of this podcast really was a discovery of how you walk into living life on your terms. How do you do that? How do you even know what is and isn't for you? And season 2 really is, and we just started season 2 about a month ago, not even, come on. It really is about now walking, and just what this quote said, the elimination of those things that aren't you. And probably 3-4 months ago, we had this moment on the podcast live, and it just spewed out of me, and it almost just gave me a headache even saying the words. But I had this realization that I couldn't keep living this life. I couldn't keep sitting in a cubicle. I couldn't keep showing up to the same thing. It just didn't align for me anymore now that I had taken this path. And saying that day, finding a way to say that, figuring that out, that had been such a long journey. And all of the things that I had learned right in that moment just came full circle, and I was like blatantly hit with this fact that there are just things here that don't align anymore. And so I had to very drastically remove myself from all those things that didn't really fit. And after going down this path of discovery, after figuring out what was and what wasn't for me, and I'm still learning every day, right? I'm still figuring those things out. After finding those things, I could finally say, yeah, that doesn't serve me. That isn't a thing. I can't be here. I can't do this anymore. And when you do that, right, and you have listened to the last month of the repercussions of that, of finding and learning new things about myself that I never expected to find and learn, the repercussions of that were devastating. But I think just as this quote ended, things align for you. Sometimes you just have to pull yourself out of it. And for me, it was like, okay, let's remove everything. in the most dramatic sense of the term of the life of whatever it is, right? Let's remove it. Let's take that out of existence like we never have before. And that was such a scary thing because it meant that I was possibly going to have to completely reinvent myself, and I definitely was going to have to get uncomfortable and do things I've never done before. And that's so amazing, right? And so extremely uncomfortable. But once you eliminate everything, so I had to eliminate my 9 to 5, which I know, right? That's everyone's dream. Okay. Except for, is it everyone's dream? I don't think it necessarily is. But for me, that's really what I had found over this past year, is that this lifestyle just doesn't align with me and how I'm called to show up in this world anymore. And I had been tricking myself for such a long time that it was the only way that I was really allowed to show up and also be successful, that I didn't really even know what was for me. And the shade that I had kind of put on my eyes, that was this fact that I had to be this person in order to be successful, had just blinded me for long enough, and I couldn't show up as that person anymore. And so I had to take a step back. And I was explaining this to my friend yesterday. I don't know that she was actually listening to me, but I was explaining it. Once I figured this out, once I figured out that a lot of these things that I was doing every single day weren't aligning with me, it became near impossible to show up in that world, to keep pretending, and to show up different than I knew my body and soul ached for me to show up. It was at times physically impaling, right? I told you through that, like extreme neck pain and heart murmurs and all these things. And I think the removal of myself from that situation gave me clarity into the ability to call new things into my life. And I can't say that I'm doing things that I'm going to want to do forever, but I would have never been able to call these things into existence had I not removed myself from how I used to exist. And it had gotten to this place where it was debilitating. It was taking a lot of my mental energy to show up as this different person than I knew to be true to myself. And that strain, that showing up as an untrue version of yourself, that strain is debilitating. And I had been doing it for a majority of my life. I had been showing up untrue for so long. It took a year of showing up every day to do that work, to figure this out, to continue navigating, to read, to find, to keep going until I found. And that work's never going to be done, no matter what you do, no matter how much closer you get. You are living an endless path of discovery of yourself. You will keep growing and changing and needing new things. And so when people come to me and they ask about, what tests they can do for Enneagram, or they ask about this self-discovery process that I tried, you're going to find what fits you, and not everything is going to. So don't just hop on a trend because it's trending and you think that it's going to align with your life because it aligned with Sally and Sherry's and Jenny's down the road. Okay? That doesn't mean it's going to fit you. But what you can do is keep trying things, keep finding and discovering, and things that do hit well with you, dive in deeper there. Okay? Take in more. Take in everything you can take in. Go for it, truly. And it's amazing how when you're calling those things into your life, right? As I had called away a 9 to 5 because it just didn't speak to the way I'm called to show up in this world. When I had to call that out of play in my life, I had to welcome new things in, new things that I could have never dreamt and expected. So one of the more fun things that I do now is auditioning for audiobook reads. And that really came from this love and desire that I had found for just speaking and talking and reading and learning. And so what a beautiful compilation of those gifts. And it's similar to how Jasmine spoke to, instead of hating myself for this natural gift that I have, which is speaking and reading and sharing and wanting to grow and develop, and that used to be something that in my past life, in this life where I was showing up untrue to myself, that I would try to keep closeted. And I would say, no, shh, nobody wants your thoughts, Hannah. Nobody wants you to speak anymore. Okay, just stay quiet. No one values this gift. You shouldn't either. Shh. Right? And so instead of that old world where I used to just closet her and say, no one wants you to talk, no one wants your opinion, no one wants you to keep learning and exploring and finding out more things and finding out more about your life, no one values that in you, please stop. Instead of hating myself that way, similar to how Jasmine talked, I started to embrace, this is who I am. This is how I'm called into this world. I talk, it's a talent. And it's a talent that some people don't have, right? And so instead of fighting that and denying myself the ability to use this gift, because it's not a very common gift, it definitely is not a gift that many people are able to monetize, right? Instead of looking at all the reasons why this gift really isn't valuable, doesn't add anything to the world, I decided that I was going to look at it as a strength and find things that would align with that strength. Right? So what could I do with this gift? I could probably talk all day long. Hey, I do a podcast. I'm actually launching a second podcast, which is very excited. It'll be a co-host podcast / broadcast. And I'm so excited for that. And that really took me removing myself from things that didn't align and allowing things to come in that did. And that took embracing and accepting that I have talent in this thing that I love to do. My favorite part of working my 9 to 5 job was the off meetings that I had where we could just talk and think and strategize all of these things that are going on. That was my favorite part. I would love to just sit in a room and philosophize different things, different ways of showing up, thinking through all of the different aspects. That was my favorite part. In days that I got to do that, days that I got to just sit in a room and think and look at expansion and growth and just talk things out. Days that I got to do that, I had endless amounts of energy. And so many people would be like, well, yeah, I mean, everybody loves to do that. Duh. But that's not the real world. And I just stopped accepting that it wasn't the real world. And I stopped ignoring that I had this talent, right? Go ahead. You can mark those things up that everyone tells you you shouldn't, that everyone asks you to hide because it's not of real real value in this world, you have the ability to mark those things as stars instead of as negatives. You control that. You are 100% in control. And the beauty of that is, once you accept and acknowledge those things, the world can start to align with those things, but you have to embrace and accept them as gifts first. You have to give yourself that gold star. Other people aren't going to. Maybe they will once in a while. Maybe you'll be impacted by someone who will. But most of the time, people aren't going to. Most of the time, people will feel threatened by you having a gift in the first place, and they'll see it first and recognize it and try to find a way to tear you down. That's kind of the scary way the world works. And that's why it's so vital that you star your own successes. We do that with greatness grounding. That's why it's imperative, right? And you can start taking steps to eliminate everything that isn't you. You can. You have that beautiful ability. And what you're going to want to do is take a step back, right? That has been my last month. I eliminated everything that wasn't serving me anymore. That was the scariest step I've ever taken forward. I just eliminated it. And then I had to take a step back and really look over what life was going to look like now, because it was such a huge change. It was such a non-charted path that I couldn't even look at a map to help me better digest how to navigate all of this. And it took time. That taking a step back really was just granting myself a heck of a lot of grace and allowing myself to move through this transition. And I just took a step back and didn't move for a little while, right? Which can be super scary, okay? But I think a lot of times we don't think about how that's going to look. We just fear what the change is going to look like more than we get excited about what it's going to lead to, right? And so it was like, oh no, you're not going to make money. How are you going to survive? How are you going to eat? These are all very valid concerns to have, no doubt. But here's how I looked at it. First and foremost, we can't stay here. We can't keep doing this. This isn't serving us anymore. This isn't adding value to my life. Okay? So we need to be able to take a step back. Now, here's the in and out kind of behind the scene details of what that might look like. Here's the thing. You want time to take a step back and just look at it, right? Because I told my husband at one point, hey, bro, if we're going to get stressed out about me making money and you're going to stress so much that you are breathing down my neck, you are going to stress me out and I'm not going to be able to fully tap into what this new creative venture is going to look like. And that's going to limit my ability to expand. So if we're going to do this, this is what I need you to accept. We have 6 weeks of payout. That's just guarded, protected, beautiful time. Okay? In that time, I will figure out how to navigate this. It looked like, of that 6 weeks, 4 weeks of just hardcore accepting of the new reality. And that was a low, exhausting process. Once I recovered from that, from this removal of old self, from this removal of old habits, from this removal of feeling needed and valued and just in this world, once I navigated the lows of that, once I just stood back and looked at what my life was going to look like, removing that normal way of showing up in the world, I could recover from that. But I think if I had just pressed forward and fast forward through all of that, I wouldn't have really been able to align and accept things that aligned with me. And it was a constant coaching process. I had to constantly be like, nope, Hannah, that doesn't align. I get that it's going to make you money today, but that isn't going to work for you. And if you left your job to do this and you do that, you didn't really leave your job for the right reasons. Stay focused. You'll be okay. Trust the process. Keep stepping back and looking. You owe it to yourself. And you got this, right? And that step back process, that gift of time that I had given myself, and most of us probably have that, or maybe you don't, but maybe you start figuring out how to give yourself that gift, because you're going to need some time to process how this looks. Once I took that time, took a step back, looked at all of it, that 2 weeks I could get super focused and things started to align with what I was calling in. That was the most amazing part, right? But so many times we just try to make it happen faster than it needs to, and we pass what we know to be true to ourselves. Okay? You can align. You can do this. You owe it to yourself to take that moment and reflect on what works and what doesn't. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world.